the bitter woman. The early morning mist hung thick over New Orleans, clinging to the narrow, muddy streets like a ghostly shroud. The city was still in its infancy, with rough-hewn wooden buildings and bustling marketplaces. The scent of salt water mixed with the earthy aroma of the surrounding bayou, creating a heady, oppressive atmosphere. In a small, dilapidated cottage on the outskirts of the town, Seranna stirred from a restless sleep. She was old, her body frail and bent from years of hard labor and heartbreak. Her face was a map of deep lines and wrinkles, each one etched by years of bitterness and disappointment. Her once vibrant hair was now a thin, silvery veil that barely covered her scalp. She moved slowly, her joints aching with every step as she shuffled to the window. Seranna peered out at the street, her eyes narrowing as she watched the townspeople go about their morning routines. She was a familiar figure to them, but not a welcomed one. To them, she was the old hag who lived alone, the woman who spoke to no one unless she had to, who never smiled or showed kindness. She was mistrusted and disliked, and she knew it. Her thoughts drifted back to the life she once imagined for herself. She had been young and hopeful once, dreaming of a family and a future filled with love and laughter. But those dreams had shattered long ago. Her husband, a charming but unreliable man, had abandoned her when she was still young, leaving her to fend for herself. Her only child, a sweet, fragile boy, had died of fever before his second birthday. The loss had hollowed her out, leaving a void that nothing could fill. Seranna's life since then had been one of survival. She took in laundry, sewed clothes, and did whatever odd jobs she could find to keep a roof over her head and food in her belly. She had grown hard and cynical, mistrusting everyone she met. In return, the townspeople kept their distance, whispering about her behind her back, calling her a witch, a hag, a curse upon the town. She turned away from the window and began her morning routine. The small hearth in the corner of the room held the remnants of last night's fire. She added a few sticks of wood and fanned the embers back to life, then set a pot of water to boil. As she waited, her eyes fell on the only photograph she owned, a faded image of her younger self with her husband and child. She reached for it, but her hand stopped short, hovering in the air before she withdrew it. It was too painful to remember what she had lost. The water boiled, and she made herself a thin porridge, eating it slowly as she listened to the sounds of the waking city, the clatter of horse-drawn carts, the calls of vendors, the distant hum of conversations, all reminders of a world that had moved on without her. Later, she would go to the market to sell the few vegetables she managed to grow in her small garden. It was the only time she interacted with the townspeople, and even then, it was only out of necessity. They would avoid her eyes, hurry through their transactions, and move on as quickly as possible. She would return home, her heart a little heavier with each passing day. As the morning sun began to burn away the mist, Seranna prepared to leave. She wrapped the worn shawl around her shoulders, picked up her basket of vegetables, and stepped out into the street. She kept her head down, avoiding the curious and suspicious glances of those she passed. She had grown used to the isolation, to the life of a pariah. It was easier to be alone, to not expect anything from anyone, to let the bitterness protect her from further pain. But as she walked through the bustling market, a part of her still longed for something more. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had been cheated out of a different life, a better life, and that bitterness, that unfulfilled longing, gnawed at her soul, making her more vulnerable than she would ever admit. Seranna's life was one of shadows and regret, and as she moved through the city she had known all her life, she couldn't help but feel that something was watching her from those shadows, something waiting for the right moment to strike. But for now, she remained oblivious, trapped in her own sorrow and resentment, unaware of the darkness that would soon engulf her world. The doctor. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the bustling streets of New Orleans. Seranna trudged back toward her small home, the paltry earnings from the market clutched tightly in her hand. The day's weariness weighed heavily on her frail frame, and her thoughts were as dark as the encroaching night. As she rounded a corner, a group of rough-looking men emerged from the shadows. They moved quickly, surrounding her before she had a chance to react. One of them grabbed her arm, his grip like iron, while another wrenched the money from her hand. "Please, I have nothing else," Seranna pleaded, her voice trembling. The men laughed cruelly. "This all you've got, old hag," one sneered, tossing the few coins into the air before pocketing them. "Not even worth our time." Before she could respond, a fist struck her cheek, sending her sprawling to the ground. They kicked and beat her until her vision blurred with pain. Finally, satisfied with their cruelty, they left her lying in the dirt, gasping for breath. Seranna lay there for what felt like an eternity, the cold ground seeping into her bones. With every ounce of strength she had left, she began to crawl, each movement a fresh agony. The streets were empty now, the townspeople safe in their homes, oblivious to her suffering. Halfway home, Seranna felt herself slipping into unconsciousness. As darkness threatened to overtake her, a pair of worn leather boots appeared in her line of vision. She heard a gentle, concerned voice. "Madam, are you all right? Here, let me help you." "I do not need help from anyone," Seranna spat, her voice weak but filled with defiance. "Please, I insist," the old man said, his tone soothing. "You are in no condition to refuse." With reluctance, Seranna allowed the man to lift her to her feet. He was strong despite his age, his hands steady and sure. Supporting her weight, he guided her the rest of the way to her cottage. Inside, the man set her gently on a chair. "I am Dr. Thorne." He introduced himself as he began to examine her injuries. "Let me bandage these wounds." Seranna watched him warily, her distrust palpable. "Why would you help me? No one else does." Dr. Thorne smiled sadly. "Because I can see you need it, and it is not safe for anyone to be out alone at night." Seranna winced as he cleaned and dressed her wounds. "I needed money," she muttered, "but now even that has been taken from me." The doctor nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Let me make you a hot drink. It will help with the pain." He moved about the small kitchen with practiced ease, soon returning with a steaming cup. Seranna accepted it, the warmth a small comfort against the chill in her bones. As they sat, Dr. Thorne broke the silence. "Why do you stay here, Seranna? Why do you keep going when life has been so cruel to you?" Seranna stared into the cup, her voice a hollow echo of past sorrows. "I have known pain my whole life. This is nothing new. My husband left me. My child died. I have faced hardship at every turn, but I cannot stop trying. I feel that all of this suffering must be for a reason, a test." "From God?" the doctor asked softly. Seranna shook her head. "Unlikely. I do not think even he would have me suffer so much, but I know that if I do not quit, if I endure and use all the pain of my life, one day I shall be rewarded." Dr. Thorne's eyes gleamed with a strange light as he listened. "You believe in your strength, then? That is commendable." Seranna met his gaze, her own eyes hard and unyielding. "I have nothing else to believe in." The doctor nodded slowly, his expression inscrutable. "Perhaps your reward is closer than you think, Seranna. Sometimes we find what we seek in the most unexpected places." Seranna frowned, uncertain of his meaning, but as the warmth of the drink spread through her, she allowed herself a moment of hope. For the first time in years, Someone had shown her kindness. Perhaps, just perhaps, her suffering had not been in vain. Dr. Thorne rose to leave, his presence lingering like a shadow. "I will check on you tomorrow," he said. "Rest now, Serana. You have endured enough for one night." As the door closed behind him, Serana sat in the silence of her small home, the doctor's words echoing in her mind. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of something other than despair. It was a small, fragile hope, but it was enough to keep her going. The turning point. Serana awoke the next morning, her body still aching from the previous night's ordeal. The bruises and cuts from the attack throbbed with each movement, reminding her of the violence she had endured. Her first thought, however, was not of her pain, but of her dire financial situation. How would she pay the landlord? How would she buy food? All her money had been stolen. She glanced over at the small chair where Dr. Thorne had sat the night before. Her eyes widened in disbelief. There, on the seat, was a pile of Spanish dollar coins, far more than she had ever earned at the market, enough to live comfortably for many months. Despite the pain, a smile crept across her face for the first time in years. Moving gingerly, Serana hid a portion of the coins in a small, loose floorboard beneath her bed. She then gathered the rest and set out to pay the landlord. Her steps were slow and deliberate, each one sending a jolt of pain through her battered body, but the promise of financial security gave her strength. When she arrived at the landlord's house, she found him outside, inspecting a new delivery of supplies. He looked up, his face souring at the sight of her. "Late again with the rent, Serana. This really is the last time. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "But I have the money," she said, holding out the coins. The landlord snatched the money from her hand, counting it quickly before pocketing it. His expression remained cold. "This will cover what you owe, but I still want you gone. You're bad for the area. People see you as an unlucky woman. And what do you care? You'll be dead soon, and good riddance." Serana's hands clenched into fists at her sides, her anger and bitterness boiling over. "How dare you?" she spat. "I've paid you what I owe. You have no right to throw me out." The landlord sneered. "You should be grateful I haven't done it sooner. Now get out of my sight." Trembling with rage, Serana turned and walked back toward her home, the landlord's cruel words echoing in her mind. "This surely must be enough," she muttered to herself. "This must be it. I will take it, whatever you need me to endure. All this will make me stronger. My pain is my strength." As she reached her cottage, she noticed the door was ajar. Her heart sank, a sense of foreboding washing over her. She rushed inside, only to find the small space ransacked. Her few belongings were scattered, broken, and torn. Panic surged through her as she hurried to where she had hidden the coins. The loose floorboard was exposed, and the hidden money was gone. Serana collapsed to her knees, her vision blurring with tears. "How much more?" she screamed, her voice raw with despair. "How much more must I endure?" A voice from behind her answered softly, "No more. You have endured and fought, and your time is now." Serana turned, her breath catching in her throat. Dr. Thorne stood in the doorway, his expression full calm and knowing. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Thorne stepped closer, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her shiver. "I have watched you, Serana. I have seen your strength, your resilience. You have endured more than most could bear, and yet you still stand. Your pain has not been in vain. It has prepared you for something greater." Serana's mind raced, her thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and hope. "What are you saying?" The doctor's smile was both kind and enigmatic. "I am offering you a way out of this suffering, a chance to reclaim your life and more, but it will come at a cost. Are you willing to pay it?" Serana's heart pounded in her chest. "I will do whatever it takes," she whispered. "I cannot endure this life any longer. I need to be free." Dr. Thorne nodded. "Then come with me. Your new life awaits." As Seranna rose to her feet, a strange sense of calm settled over her. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but anything was better than the endless cycle of pain and despair she had known. She took a deep breath and followed Dr. Thorne into the night, ready to embrace whatever fate had in store for her. Dr. Thorne's home was a stark contrast to the dilapidated cottage Seranna called home. Set back from the bustling streets of New Orleans, the estate was lavish, with tall iron gates and a winding path that led through manicured gardens to a grand, stately house. As they stepped inside, Seranna marveled at the opulence, the high ceilings, the intricate woodwork, and the rich tapestries that adorned the walls. "This place is magnificent," Seranna said, her voice filled with awe. "Yes, it is a place I am renting for a short while," Dr. Thorne replied, leading her into a luxurious sitting room. "Please, make yourself comfortable." Seranna sank into a plush armchair, feeling the weight of her exhaustion settling over her. Dr. Thorne took a seat opposite her, his piercing gaze fixed on her. "Tell me about your childhood, Seranna," he said softly. "I wish to understand you better." Seranna hesitated, then began to speak, her voice tinged with the bitterness of old wounds. "My childhood was hard. I lost my parents when I was very young. I survived alone on the streets for months before being taken to an orphanage. It was a harsh place, more like a prison than a home. The caretakers were cruel and food was scarce. We were treated like animals." Dr. Thorne listened intently, his expression unreadable. "And your marriage?" "I was married at 16, Seranna continued, her voice growing colder, "to a man who promised to take care of me, but he was no better than the caretakers at the orphanage. He beat me, used me, and then left me alone. I was pregnant when he abandoned me." Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke of her son. "My boy was the only light in my life, but he was frail. He died of fever before he turned 2. After that, I was truly alone. The townspeople shunned me. They saw me as cursed, unlucky. I've struggled every day just to survive, excluded and ridiculed at every turn." Dr. Thorne leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "And yet, you continued on." "Why?" "Because I felt I was being tested," Seranna replied, her voice firm. "I believed that all this suffering must be for a reason, that if I endured, I would be rewarded. But now I'm not so sure." Dr. Thorne's gaze intensified. "And what would you do if I gave it all back to you? Your youth, your strength? Would you change your life, help others, and live easily?" Seranna's lip curled into a sneer. "No, I would punish those who treated me wrong. They deserve to suffer as I have suffered." Dr. Thorne's eyes flashed with a dark light as he stood, his voice ringing with conviction. "Yes, it will not be pretty. It will not be pleasant. It will cause you great pain and sorrow, and you will hate the world more than you hate it already. But you will be able to punish those who deserve punishment." Seranna stared at him, her heart pounding. "How?" "It matters not how," Dr. Thorne said, his voice low and menacing. "Do you agree to more pain, more suffering, much more than you have ever endured, but with the light of redemption?" Without hesitation, Seranna spoke. "Yes." Dr. Thorne's face twisted into a grotesque smile. His fangs lengthened from his mouth, his eyes sank into dark pits, and his skin turned deathly pale. "Then prepare to become one of us." He lunged forward, sinking his teeth into Seranna's neck. She screamed in agony as a burning pain seared through her body. Her vision blurred, and she felt her life draining away. The world around her faded to black, the last thing she saw being Dr. Thorne's monstrous face, watching over her with a twisted satisfaction. The room was silent, except for the sound of Dr. Thorne's breathing. He stood over Seranna's lifeless body, his eyes glinting with the promise of the horrors to come. The first taste. Days later, Seranna opened her eyes. She lay on a bed inside Dr. Thorne's estate, surrounded by opulent furnishings. Strangely, she felt no pain. Rising with ease, she marveled at her muscles, feeling strong and limber. But when she looked back at the bed, she saw strands of her silver hair on the pillow. Her hands, now aged far beyond her years, trembled as she felt her head. Her hair had fallen out, leaving her bald. Panic surged through her as she rushed to find a mirror, but there were none in the room. The door creaked open, and Dr. Thorne entered, a satisfied smile on his face. "At last you have returned," he said. Angrily, Seranna rushed across the room to him, but instead of walking or running, she merged into shadow and appeared before him. Dr. Thorne clapped his hands. "Excellent. You have the making of a first-class elder." "What has happened to me?" Seranna demanded. "My hair. My body is older, but I feel stronger." Dr. Thorne nodded. Yes. It's because you need to feed." "Feed?" Seranna repeated, puzzled. "Yes," Dr. Thorne said. "So, who will it be first?" Seranna's mind raced. "The landlord," she said, her voice cold. "Ah, yes." "Then let us go," Dr. Thorne said. As they navigated the shadows, Seranna felt a new power coursing through her. She moved from shadow to shadow, almost instantaneously. Within moments, they were at the landlord's home. "Now, Seranna," Dr. Thorne instructed, "just as I did to you. You must drink from his neck. Do not let him live. Drink deep, and drink it all. I will be here for you if need be." Seranna walked up to the door and gave it a push, her strength unexpectedly smashing the door apart. She smiled, reveling in her newfound power. Inside, the landlord looked up in shock. "Who are you?" he asked, not recognizing Seranna at first. Then his eyes widened in fear. "Seranna, is that you? You can have your cottage back." She saw the small stack of Spanish dollars on his table, the same coins she had hidden. Fueled by rage, she moved through shadow, appearing with her teeth bared. She sank her fangs into his neck, drinking deeply. Ecstasy and pleasure surged through her as the crimson liquid rejuvenated her body. Her hair grew thick and black, her face regained its youth, and her lips turned a deep red. Her skin became smooth and vibrant. By the time she finished drinking, she was restored to her youthful self. She threw the landlord's lifeless body aside and screamed into the night. "I will punish you all." Dr. Thorne watched her with a twisted smile. "Welcome to your new life, Seranna. The world will soon know your wrath." Seranna stood in the moonlit doorway, her eyes burning with a fierce determination. The taste of blood still lingered on her lips, and she felt invincible. For the first time, she had the power to exact her revenge, to make those who wronged her pay. The world that had once shunned and beaten her would now tremble before her. A new beginning. Back at Dr. Thorne's estate, the opulent surroundings now felt different to Seranna. She had tasted power and revenge, and her senses were heightened with her newfound strength. She stood in the grand sitting room, feeling the weight of her transformation, as Dr. Thorne approached her one last time. "I must now leave," Dr. Thorne said, his voice calm yet final. "I will forever be proud to have given you your chance, Seranna. You will be one of our best, I am sure." "Where are you going?" Seranna asked, a flicker of vulnerability in her voice. "This I cannot tell you," Dr. Thorne replied. "Do not follow me or seek to find me. I do not wish to be found. You are alone again, Seranna, but with the power to change everything." Before he left, Dr. Thorne handed Seranna a set of papers. She took them, her eyes widening as she read the deeds to the estate. "I did say I was renting this," he said with a smile. "From you, this place is yours. Do me proud, Seranna. Make them all pay for what they have done to you." With that, Dr. Thorne merged into the shadows and vanished, leaving Seranna alone in the grand house. She stood in the silence, the deeds clutched in her hand, a sense of profound change settling over her. Seranna walked through the estate, exploring every room, the lavish decor, the beautiful furnishings. It was all hers now. She reached the master bedroom and paused, looking at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was long and black, her skin smooth and youthful, her eyes burning with a fierce light. She was beautiful, powerful, and immortal. But as she stood there, a pang of emptiness gnawed at her. She had everything she had ever dreamt of, except a family. That loss, the void left by her husband and child, could not be filled by power or wealth. It was a wound that no amount of revenge could heal. "This is not enough," she whispered to herself. "For this, they will all pay." She turned away from the mirror and sat down in the grand dining hall, staring at the deeds. The estate was vast, isolated from the prying eyes of the town. It was the perfect place to plot her next moves. The people who had shunned her, who had treated her with cruelty and disdain, would now face her wrath. Seranna began to formulate her plans. She would start with those who had hurt her the most. The townspeople who had ridiculed her, the merchants who had cheated her. One by one, she would exact her revenge, using her newfound powers to bring them to their knees. But beyond revenge, she saw a future where she could create something new. She could build a family of her own kind, a coven of powerful beings who understood her pain and shared her thirst for justice. Together, they would rule the night, feared and revered by all. As the night deepened, Seranna felt a surge of determination. Dr. Thorne had given her the means, and now it was up to her to use them. She was no longer the bitter, broken woman of the past. She was Seranna, the Avenger, the bringer of justice, and the world would soon know her name. With renewed purpose, Seranna rose from her seat and walked to the grand entrance of the estate. The night was hers, and she had much to do. She stepped into the shadows, merging with them effortlessly, and vanished into the darkness, ready to begin her reign of vengeance. A reunion in blood. Seated in a small, dimly lit tavern, Seranna sat alone, her head covered with a hood, hiding her face from the prying eyes around her. The tavern was filled with the sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and drunken songs. She watched an old man at a nearby table, laughing and joking as he drank. Despite his age, he flirted shamelessly with the younger women, trying to get them drunk. When a servant brought more drinks, he slapped her for taking too long. Seranna's eyes narrowed. This was her husband from many years ago, the man who had abandoned her, who had left her to fend for herself in a world that had shown her no mercy. Slowly, she lowered her hood, revealing her pale skin, red lips, and jet black hair. She was beautiful, a vision of deadly allure. She walked up to the man, her movements graceful and purposeful. "Buy me a drink, sir," she said, her voice smooth and enticing. The man looked at her, a flicker of recognition passing over his features, but then he was taken aback by her beauty. "Of course," he said, leering at her. "Like them a bit older, do you?" He motioned for her to sit next to him. Serana sat down, and he placed his hand on her leg. She placed her hand over his and began to squeeze, her strength crushing his hand. He winced in pain, trying to pull away, but she held him fast. With a hard squeeze, she squashed his hand, breaking the bones in it. He cried out in pain, but no one paid heed, too accustomed to his antics in this tavern. "Do you remember me?" she asked, her voice cold and sharp. He looked at her, his eyes wide with pain and fear. "Serana," he whispered, "how is this possible?" "You made this possible," she replied. "You and people like you made this possible. Now I will show you the impossible." In plain sight, she sank her teeth into his neck. The tavern patrons, too engrossed in their own revelry, didn't notice a thing. She drank deeply, feeling the pure pleasure of the crimson liquid rejuvenate in her, making her feel more powerful with each drop. When she finished, she stood up, letting his lifeless body slump to the floor. She walked out of the tavern, the cold night air hitting her face. She looked up at the moon, a twisted smile playing on her lips. "If you could see yourselves as I see you," she spoke to the night. "Food in the guise of predators. You are no more predators than birds to bugs. I am not a bug anymore. I am your death." Her words hung in the air, a chilling promise of the retribution she would bring. The town of New Orleans had not seen the last of Serana. With every life she took, her power grew, and with it, her resolve to punish those who had wronged her. She was no longer the bitter, broken woman of her past. She was vengeance incarnate, and the world would tremble before her. The sage's warning. Years later, Serana sat alone in a small churchyard, the moonlight casting a silvery glow over the unmarked grave before her. She felt a deep sorrow, but her inability to express grief gnawed at her insides. She could not cry. She simply sat there, a silent sentinel to her past. Years ago, this was the place her son was buried. She spoke softly to the grave, her voice filled with a hollow longing. "You were taken from me because I could not save you. I was helpless, penniless. You were my everything. Today, I could save you. If you were here, I could give you anything, everything. But when you needed it, I could give you nothing but my love. You were the only thing I loved. And even now, I can still feel you. I have great powers, but it's not enough to have what I truly need. You." As she lost herself in her thoughts, a figure stood behind her in the shadows. The figure spoke, his voice resonant and soothing. "I know of your pain, my child. As an elder, we are born from pain, from suffering. We would not endure the process otherwise." She turned to see an old man, an elder, his presence radiating a powerful, ancient energy. He stepped into the moonlight, his eyes reflecting centuries of wisdom and sorrow. He spoke again. "Know this, my dear. There is a place for you within my council. I am the sage, and I can help you on this journey." Serana looked up at the sage, her eyes filled with mistrust. "I have been taken in before by men saying they have my interest at heart. Never again will I be at the mercy of those who say they want to help me. Those that have said this are now dead. I have killed them all." The sage nodded slowly. "Yes, we all went through this, but the time will come when revenge loses its luster, and the killing no longer satisfies you. When that time comes, Seek me out. Until then, you are in a prison of your own making." Seranna's voice was a low growl. "This world is my prison, and I shall punish those who built it until I am free." The sage disappeared into the shadows, his parting words lingering in the air. "When you are ready, my child." Seranna looked up at the sky and smiled, a cold, determined smile. "Oh, it will be a long time before I'm done. I will make them all rue the day they imprisoned me." She rose from the grave, her resolve hardening with each step she took away from the churchyard. The world had taken everything from her, and now it was her turn to take everything from the world. With each act of vengeance, she felt a step closer to her own twisted form of justice. Her son's grave was a stark reminder of her lost humanity, but it also fueled her relentless quest for retribution. As the night deepened, Seranna vanished into the darkness, her mind already plotting her next move. The sage's words echoed in her mind, a distant whisper of a future yet to come. But for now, her path was clear. She would not rest until every soul who had wronged her paid dearly, and one day, perhaps, she would seek out the sage, but not until her vengeance was complete. The last days of joy. In the heart of the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation, nestled within the rolling hills and fertile valleys, lay the village of Hartenberg. It was a place where the sun seemed to shine a little brighter, and the laughter of children was a constant melody that filled the air. Among these children was young Eldur, a boy of 10 years, with a mop of unruly dark hair and eyes that sparkled with curiosity and joy. Eldur's family was not wealthy, but their home was rich with love and warmth. His father, Hans, was a blacksmith, whose strength was matched only by his kindness. His mother, Ingrid, was the heart of the household, her gentle hands always busy with the chores that kept their small home running smoothly. Eldur had a younger sister, Greta, whose giggles were a source of endless delight to him. Together, they formed a close-knit family that faced the world with smiles and songs. Life in Hardenberg was simple but fulfilling. Eldur spent his days helping his father in the forge, playing in the fields with his friends, and exploring the nearby woods. The villagers often gathered for festivals, where music and dancing lit up the night, and the bonds of community grew stronger with each passing year. The storm of chaos, but the idyllic peace of Hartenberg was shattered one fateful evening. The village lay quiet under a sky painted with the colours of dusk when the tranquility was broken by the distant sound of hooves thundering against the earth. The villagers looked up, alarmed, as the dreaded Black Company, a notorious band of marauding bandits known for their brutality, descended upon them. The Black Company, led by the ruthless Wolfheart, showed no mercy. They swept through Hartenberg like a storm, their swords gleaming in the firelight as they set homes ablaze. Hans tried to defend his family, but was cut down before Eldur's eyes. Ingrid, clutching Greta, was struck down as she tried to shield her daughter. Eldur could do nothing but watch in horror as his world was torn apart. The bandits rounded up the surviving children, including Eldur, and bound them with rough ropes. The air was thick with smoke and the cries of the dying. Eldur was dragged away, his heart breaking with each step as he left behind the only life he had ever known. Chains of despair. The next few years of Eldur's life were a blur of pain and suffering. The Black Company treated their captives with cruelty, using the children for hard labor and punishing them severely for the slightest infraction. Eldur, small but resilient, endured beatings and back-breaking work. The bandits forced him to carry heavy loads, clean their camps, and perform other menial tasks. The once cheerful boy became hardened by his experiences. The bandits saw him as nothing more than property, to be used and discarded at will. Eldur's spirit, however, remained unbroken. He clung to the memories of his family and the happier times in Hartenberg, finding strength in his determination to survive. As Eldur grew older, his tasks became more demanding. He was often punished for defiance, the bandits seeing his resilience as a challenge to their authority. Despite the constant mistreatment, Eldur's resolve only grew stronger. He learned to endure the pain, to bide his time, and to never lose hope. The auction block. At 16, Eldur's fate took another dark turn. The Black Company, needing to fund their ongoing raids, decided to sell some of their captives. Eldur was among those selected to be auctioned off. He was taken to a bustling market, chained and displayed like livestock. The humiliation was immense, but Eldur's eyes remained defiant, his heart steeled by years of suffering. The auction was a cacophony of shouts and bids. Eldur stood on the block, his body marked by scars from years of beatings. As potential buyers examined him, he felt a surge of anger and determination. He swore to himself that he would find a way to escape this life, to break free from the chains that bound him. A glimmer of hope. As the auction progressed, a regiment of soldiers passed by, their uniforms a stark contrast to the grim reality of the market. Eldur watched them with a mix of envy and hope. When one of the soldiers, a kind-faced young man, noticed the defiance in Eldur's eyes, he paused. A brief exchange of glances between the soldier and his superior resulted in a hasty decision. Eldur was purchased by the regiment, his chains removed, and his future, though uncertain, suddenly seemed brighter. Eldur was taken in by the soldiers, who offered him a place among their ranks. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope. Though he was still haunted by his past and the loss of his family, Eldur saw a chance for a new beginning. He vowed to honor the memory of those he had lost by becoming a soldier they would be proud of, by rising above the pain and forging a new path forward. Brotherhood and betrayal. Order of the Crimson Bond. Eldur was taken in by the Order of the Crimson Bond, a renowned regiment within the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. The regiment was known for its valor and discipline, often called upon to protect the Empire's borders from external threats. Eldur, though new to the life of a soldier, quickly proved himself to be strong, brave, and determined. His years of suffering had forged him into a resilient young man, and he excelled in his duties. Eldur's dedication did not go unnoticed. He earned the respect of his comrades and superior officers through his tireless work ethic and unyielding spirit. Among his fellow soldiers, he found a new family. There was Dietrich, the seasoned veteran with a hearty laugh, Wilhelm, the sharpshooter with a quick wit, and Franz, the gentle giant who could lift a barrel of ale as easily as a feather. Together, they formed an inseparable bond, becoming brothers in arms. The camaraderie within the Crimson Bond was a source of immense joy for Eldur. Evenings were spent around campfires, sharing stories of home, dreams for the future, and the occasional bawdy joke. Eldur, once a lonely orphan, now felt the warmth of friendship and loyalty. The soldiers would often gather at the local tavern, raising their mugs in toasts and reveling in each other's company. The laughter and camaraderie were a balm for Eldur's wounded soul. These moments of happiness were a stark contrast to the hardship he had endured. For the first time since the loss of his family, Eldur felt a sense of belonging. He cherished these bonds, knowing that his comrades were more than just fellow soldiers. They were his new family. In the summer of 1683, the Crimson Bond was called upon to defend the Empire against a formidable foe. The Ottoman Empire, led by Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa, had laid siege to Vienna, a battle that would determine the fate of thousands and the stability of the region. The stakes were incredibly high, and the soldiers knew that their courage and skill were all that stood between their homeland and devastation. As the battle commenced, Eldur fought with a ferocity that surprised even him. He moved through the chaos with precision, his training and determination driving him forward. Beside him, Dietrich, Wilhelm, and Franz fought valiantly, their bond giving them strength. The battlefield was a maelstrom of clashing swords, flying arrows, and booming cannons. The air was thick with the cries of the wounded and the dying. Despite their bravery, the forces of the Holy Roman Empire were overwhelmed. The Ottomans, with their superior numbers and strategic advantage, pushed forward relentlessly. Eldur watched in horror as his comrades were cut down one by one. Dietrich fell, his laughter silenced forever. Wilhelm, struck by an arrow, crumpled to the ground. Franz, his great strength failing him, was overrun by enemy soldiers. Eldur fought desperately to protect his fallen brothers, but it was in vain. Retreat and shame. The order to retreat was given, and the surviving soldiers of Crimson Bond fled the battlefield. Eldur, his heart heavy with grief and guilt, followed, while the siege of Vienna would ultimately end in a Christian victory. The Crimson Bond became one of its forgotten tragedies, a brotherhood lost in the mist and blood of a war larger than themselves. The retreating soldiers returned to their homes, but they were not welcomed as survivors. Instead, they were shunned and shamed, labeled as cowards and traitors. The villagers, desperate for someone to blame, directed their anger at the defeated soldiers. Eldur, once a respected member of his regiment, now found himself ostracized. The bonds of brotherhood that had sustained him were shattered, leaving him to face the scorn of those who had once looked up to him. Life became unbearable. Eldur, now a beggar on the streets, endured harsh winters and the cruel whispers of those who saw him as a failure. The shame of defeat and the loss of his comrades weighed heavily on his soul. He wandered aimlessly, haunted by the memories of the battlefield and the faces of the friends he had lost. The pain of his past and the burden of his present left Eldur a shadow of the man he once was. Yet, in the darkest hours of his despair, a new chapter of his life awaited, one that would transform him in ways he could never have imagined. A glimmer of compassion, Eldur, now a shadow of his former self, wandered the streets begging for scraps. His once strong frame was now frail, and his eyes, once filled with determination, were hollow. He had lost all hope, until a kind-hearted woman named Annika took pity on him. Annika's brother had also fought and lost his life in the battle against the Ottoman Empire. She saw in Eldur a reflection of her own grief, and offered him food and kindness when no one else would. Day after day, Annika visited Eldur, bringing him warm meals and tending to his wounds. Slowly, the walls Eldur had built around his heart began to crumble. Annika's compassion and understanding rekindled a small spark of hope within him. They spent hours talking about their shared losses, finding solace in each other's company. Eldur, who had sworn never to form another bond, found himself falling in love. With Annika's encouragement, Eldur began to rebuild his life. They moved to an isolated part of the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation, far from the prying eyes and cruel whispers of the townsfolk. They lived in a small, humble shack, but their love and happiness made it feel like a palace. For the first time in years, Eldur felt truly at peace. Their days were filled with simple joys, tending to a small garden, sharing meals by the fire, and dreaming of a future together. Annika's laughter became the music of Eldur's life, and her presence a balm for his soul. Their love was a quiet, powerful force that seemed to heal the wounds of their past. When Annika discovered she was pregnant, their joy knew no bounds. They eagerly prepared for the arrival of their child, imagining the life they would build together as a family. Eldur, who had lost so much, felt blessed by the prospect of new beginnings. However, fate dealt Eldur another cruel blow. During childbirth, complications arose, and despite Eldur's desperate efforts, Annika and their newborn child both died. Eldur's heart shattered once more, the weight of his grief almost too much to bear. He buried them in a quiet spot near their home, marking the graves with simple wooden crosses. In the days that followed, Eldur was consumed by his sorrow. He stayed in their small shack, swearing never to befriend another person. The pain of losing Annika and their child was a wound too deep to heal. He grew bitter and reclusive, avoiding any contact with the outside world. As the years passed, Eldur's isolation only deepened. His home was often robbed by strangers, taking advantage of his age and frailty. He was no longer able to defend himself as he once had. The once strong and brave soldier had become a weak old man, shunned and feared by the people who called him a witch and evil. On the rare occasions Eldur ventured into town for supplies, he was met with hostility. People stared, spat at him, and called him names. They avoided his gaze, whispering that he had the evil eye. The townsfolk's cruelty cut deep, reinforcing Eldur's resolve to remain isolated. He felt like a ghost, a relic of a past that no one wanted to remember. Eldur's life became a cycle of pain and bitterness. He kept to himself, his heart hardened by loss and betrayal. The small shack, once filled with love and laughter, now stood as a monument to his suffering. Eldur had become a man haunted by his past, unable to find peace or solace in the present. As he grew older, he resigned himself to a life of loneliness, believing that happiness and companionship were no longer within his reach. The accusation. It was a cold, lonely evening in Eldur's small shack. The fire crackled weakly, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Eldur sat in his worn chair, staring into the flames, lost in memories of a time long past. The quiet was suddenly shattered by the violent crash of his door being kicked open. Eldur turned sharply to see a group of men from the village, their faces twisted with anger and fear. "You!" one of them shouted, pointing a trembling finger at Eldur. "You're the one who's brought this curse upon us. You're the reason our children are sick." Eldur, frail and hunched with age, looked up at them with weary eyes. "I've done nothing to harm you," he said calmly. "I am but an old man, alone in my misery." "Liar," another man spat, holding up a length of rope. "We know your kind. You're a witch, a bringer of evil. If you want to save this village, you'll hang yourself tonight." The men advanced on Eldur, their intentions clear. He felt a surge of fear and anger well up inside him. They grabbed him roughly, trying to force the rope around his neck. The firelight reflected off their wild eyes, casting grotesque shadows on their faces. "I have nothing to do with your sickness," Eldur repeated, his voice growing firmer, but the men did not listen. They struck him, blows landing hard on his frail body. The pain reignited something deep within Eldur, a fire that had not been extinguished by years of suffering. Suddenly, with a strength that defied his age, Eldur fought back. He knocked one of the men to the ground and delivered a blow to another, who staggered back in shock. The villagers were momentarily stunned. How could this old, frail man possess such power? "Stop!" one of the men cried, fear creeping into his voice. "He's possessed!" Eldur stood tall, his eyes blazing with an intensity that seemed otherworldly. "I have seen pain all my life, from when I was a boy," he growled. "I am used to it. Bring me more. I want it." With a feral roar, Eldur lunged at them like a crazed animal. The men, terrified by this sudden transformation, scrambled to get away. They fled from the shack, shouting in fear. "He's mad! He's possessed!" Their cries echoed into the night as they ran. As the last of the men disappeared into the darkness, Eldur stood alone in the doorway, his chest heaving. The adrenaline that had fueled his fierce resistance drained away, leaving him weak and trembling. He staggered back inside and collapsed onto the floor, the room spinning around him. The small fire continued to burn, its light now casting long shadows over Eldur's prone form. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, a mixture of triumph and despair flooding his mind. He had defended himself, shown strength he thought long gone, but at what cost? He had fought off his tormentors, but his body was failing him. Eldur's thoughts drifted to Annika and their unborn child, to his lost comrades and the family he once had. Tears filled his eyes as he lay on the cold, hard floor, surrounded by the remnants of his shattered life. He had fought for survival his entire life, but now, as darkness began to close in, he wondered if he had the strength to continue. The fire crackled on, the only sound in the silence of the night, as Eldur slipped into unconsciousness, his body and spirit battered, but not broken. Eldur lay motionless on the cold floor of his shack, the remnants of the struggle still fresh in his mind. He drifted in and out of consciousness, the world around him a haze of pain and memories. Through the fog, a voice pierced the darkness. "Hello there," the voice said, soft but firm. Eldur tried to lift himself, but his body failed him. He managed to turn his head, squinting through the dim light, to see a figure approaching. The voice spoke again, calm and reassuring. "It's okay, Eldur. I am a doctor, not one of them. Let me help you." Eldur spat back, his voice hoarse with defiance. "No, I do not need help. I enjoy the pain." The figure knelt beside him, revealing a kind face framed by dark hair. "Good. That is what I wanted to hear, but I must insist." The man gently lifted Eldur and began to bandage his wounds. With practiced ease, he brought a hot drink to Eldur's lips, the warmth seeping into his weary bones. Eldur, too weak to resist, allowed the man to help him. "I am Dr. Thorne," the man introduced himself. "Tell me, Eldur, why carry on? Why not just give up? There is no shame in quitting. Many more powerful than you have. Why keep going?" Eldur's eyes, though filled with pain, held a spark of determination. "My father was a blacksmith," he began. "He used to blister steel, heating it until it was red hot, then hammering it into shape. He always said that the steel was weak until the final phase, when it became strong and hard. That was its reward for enduring the process." Eldur paused, his voice gaining strength. "I see myself as the steel. The pain of life is my blister. Like steel, the more we endure, the stronger we get. My father told me that steel is weak until it faces the final trial. I feel my reward is coming. I just need to pay more in pain." Dr. Thorne listened intently, his eyes never leaving Eldur's. When Eldur finished, Thorne nodded. You have paid your dues, Elder, and now is the time to become as strong and hard as steel. But answer me one more question. If you could have this life over, would you live it any different? Elder's response was immediate. No, to do so would make me weak. If I were to do this again and be as strong as the steel my father forged, I would cut down anyone and everyone in my way. Dr. Thorne's eyes lit up. A smile spreading across his face. Then prepare to be the sword of your vengeance, Elder. Before Elder could react, Dr. Thorne's face transformed, his fangs elongating. He burst through the shadows, moving with supernatural speed. Elder felt the doctor's fangs sink deep into his neck, a sharp pain followed by a strange numbness. His vision blurred, and the room spun around him. He tried to fight, but his strength was no match for the vampire. Eldur collapsed, his body lifeless. Darkness closed in, and he felt a cold emptiness where his pain had once been. But deep within that darkness, a new fire ignited, a fire that promised power and vengeance. Eldur's journey was far from over. It was only just beginning. Eldur's eyes slowly opened, the room coming into focus. He was lying on the floor of his shack, but the pain that had plagued him for years was gone. Dr. Thorne was seated beside him, watching intently. "That was quick," Dr. Thorne said, a hint of admiration in his voice. "It normally takes days?" Eldur stood up, surprised at how easy it was. He felt a surge of strength, his muscles taut and powerful. He marveled at his newfound vitality, but when he looked at his hands, he noticed that they had aged, the skin leathery and ancient. "What have you done to me?" Eldur demanded, a mixture of awe and fear in his voice. Dr. Thorne stood, his expression calm and composed. "I have watched you, Eldur, from that moment when the bandits raided your camp. I saw you forced to work half to death in their camp, sold at auction, fighting in battle, begging on the streets. I was there when your family perished and when you grew old and bitter. I knew you would become an elder, one of us, but we can only be born through pain and suffering." Eldur's mind reeled as he processed Thorne's words. The memories of his suffering, his losses, and his relentless struggle flashed through his mind. The realization dawned on him. He had been chosen for something greater, something darker. Dr. Thorne continued, "Now, you must feed to regain your strength." Eldur walked to the small cupboard and opened it, instinctively searching for food. But Dr. Thorne laughed, a deep, knowing sound. "That type of food is no longer for you," Thorne said. "Come, it is time to unsheathe your steel and become the bringer of vengeance. Embracing the darkness." Eldur looked at Dr. Thorne, a newfound understanding within him. He knew what he must do. The fire of vengeance that had burned within him for so long now had a purpose. The pain and suffering he had endured were not in vain. They had forged him into something powerful, something deadly. As they stepped out into the night, Eldur felt an exhilarating sense of freedom and purpose. The world, once a place of suffering and loss, now seemed ripe for the vengeance he would unleash upon it. Dr. Thorne guided him through the darkness, a mentor in the ways of their kind. They moved through the village with supernatural speed and stealth. Eldur's senses were heightened. He could hear the heartbeat of every living creature, smell the blood coursing through their veins. Hunger gnawed at him, a primal urge that demanded satisfaction. Dr. Thorne led him to a secluded spot where a lone traveler was making camp. The man was oblivious to their presence, humming softly to himself. Eldur's instincts took over, and before he knew it, he had descended upon the man. his fangs sinking into the soft flesh of the traveller's neck. The rush of blood filled Eldur with a strength and clarity he had never known. As the life drained from the man, Eldur felt a surge of power, a completeness that was intoxicating, the sword of vengeance. Dr. Thorne watched, a satisfied smile on his face. "Now, Eldur, you are truly reborn. You are the sword of your vengeance. Use your strength to cut down those who have wronged you and those who bring suffering to others." Eldur nodded, wiping the blood from his lips. He felt no remorse, only a cold determination. The pain he had endured had shaped him into a weapon, and now it was time to wield that weapon against the world, the harbinger of death. As Eldur and Dr. Thorne began to move back to Eldur's small shack, a sudden realization struck Eldur. He stopped abruptly, a fierce determination lighting up his eyes. "Wait," he said, his voice carrying a new authority. "This is not enough for them." With a predatory grace, Eldur merged with the shadows and moved towards the town. Dr. Thorne watched, a knowing smile playing on his lips. Eldur's form seemed to melt into the darkness as he approached a group of young men gathered in the street. Without hesitation, Eldur descended upon them like a harbinger of death. The men's laughter turned to screams of fear and terror as Eldur's fangs found their throats, drinking deeply of their crimson liquid. The warm blood invigorated him, each drop a testament to his newfound power. Eldur's cries echoed through the night. "More," he demanded. "I want more," Dr. Thorne observed from the shadows, his satisfaction complete. His job was done, his faith in Eldur's potential fulfilled. He merged with the shadows and disappeared from Eldur's life forever, leaving his creation to wreak havoc and seek his own path, a new purpose. Months passed, and Eldur had made his way to Vienna. The city, once a symbol of his greatest failure, now became the stage for his vengeance. Eldur targeted leaders and high-ranking officers, the very people who had once shunned him and blamed him for their losses. He moved through the city like a ghost. His presence felt only in the aftermath of his deadly visits. Each night, Eldur sought out his targets, cutting them down with the precision of a sword of hardened steel. He relished the fear in their eyes, the final moments of their lives as they realized the predator that had come for them. Vienna's elite fell one by one, their blood nourishing Eldur's growing power. Eldur's actions did not go unnoticed. Whispers of a vengeful spirit spread through the city, a dark avenger who struck without warning. The people of Vienna lived in fear, knowing that no amount of guards or fortifications could protect them from the shadowy menace. Eldur embraced his role, seeing himself as the sword of vengeance, forged in the fires of his suffering and now unleashed upon those who had wronged him. He moved with a purpose, his every action driven by the pain of his past and the promise of retribution. One night, Eldur stood atop a high tower, looking out over the city of Vienna. The moon cast a pale light on the streets below, where panic and fear had taken root. Eldur felt a sense of grim satisfaction. He had become what his father had always spoken of, a piece of steel, hardened and strong, ready to cut down anything in its path. But with each life he took, Eldur felt a growing emptiness. The vengeance that had driven him was beginning to lose its edge, replaced by a cold, hollow feeling. The faces of those he had lost haunted his dreams, their voices calling out to him from the depths of his soul. He had gained power, but at a cost that weighed heavily on his heart. Eldur knew that his journey was far from over. He had embraced the darkness, But now he needed to find a new purpose, something beyond the endless cycle of vengeance. As he looked out over the city, he vowed to find that purpose, to use his strength for something greater than his own pain. The path ahead was uncertain, but Eldur was ready to face it. He had been forged in the fires of suffering, and now, as a creature of the night, he would carve out his destiny with the same determination that had carried him through his darkest days. The steel of his spirit was strong, and he would wield it with the precision and power of a true warrior. Return to the past. Eldur returned to the now abandoned shack where his wife and child had perished many years ago. The small, decrepit structure stood as a testament to his past sorrows. He approached the graves, marked by simple wooden crosses, where he had buried his loved ones. The rain fell in heavy sheets, soaking the ground and blurring the line between earth and sky. He stood over the ground, his heart heavy with memories. "If you could see me now, you would be proud of me." He spoke to the silent graves. "I am the steel that cuts down those who deserve their punishment. My powers are beyond anything the world has seen." Eldur collapsed to the ground, clutching the soil in his hands. "But even with all my power, I can do nothing to fill the emptiness within me, the void created by your loss." He looked up to the skies, his voice breaking with anguish. "Damn you, God! Damn you for taking them from me!" His words echoed in the night, carried away by the howling wind. As he settled, his voice grew calmer. "Maybe one day I will find another like me, who understands my pain. Maybe then the void can be filled, but until that day, they will suffer. Oh, how they will suffer." At that moment, a voice spoke from behind him, soft yet powerful. "Be at peace, my child. Every elder must endure the pain. That is our payment for this gift." Eldur turned to see an imposing figure standing in the dark and rain. The man radiated an aura of ancient wisdom and power. "I am the sage," the figure continued. "There are others like us. I have a council of elders. You are welcome there. Join your kind. Join the council." Eldur looked at the sage, a mixture of curiosity and defiance in his eyes. "I have much to do, sage. Maybe I will join you when I am sated, but that day is not today." The sage nodded, understanding and patience in his gaze. "Seek me out when you are ready, Eldur, my son. Your place is with us." With those words, the sage disappeared into the shadows, leaving Eldur alone once more. Eldur stood up, the rain lashing down upon him, mixing with the soil and dirt covering his hands. He looked down at the graves of his loved ones, a renewed sense of purpose filling his heart. "I will seek you out, sage," he murmured. "But first, my steel must be tested. I must become the vengeance of my past. I must redeem my pain, and I feel this will take a long time." A dark smile spread across Eldur's face as he turned away from the graves and began walking back towards the town. "I also think," he said to himself, "I'm going to enjoy this." With each step, Eldur felt the weight of his past lift slightly, replaced by the grim satisfaction of the vengeance to come. The rain continued to pour, but he no longer felt its chill. His path was clear, his resolve unshakable. Eldur was ready to embrace his destiny, to become the sword of vengeance that would carve out justice in a world that had shown him no mercy. And so, with the fire of purpose burning in his heart, Eldur set out into the night, determined to fulfill the promise he had made to himself and to the memories of those he had lost. The world would know his name, and through his actions, he would find the redemption and peace he so desperately sought. Eldur walked the dark path of vengeance with unwavering determination, a lone figure cutting through the shadows of a world that had wronged him. His power grew with each life he took, each act of retribution a testament to his pain and the strength it had forged within him. Yet, despite the satisfaction he found in his vengeance, an emptiness lingered, a void that no amount of bloodshed could fill. As he moved from town to town, exacting his form of justice, Eldur often found himself reflecting on the words of the sage. He wondered if there truly were others like him, others who had been forged in the fires of pain and loss. He questioned whether any of them could understand the depth of his suffering, the loneliness that gnawed at his soul. Unbeknownst to Eldur, his fate was intertwined with another's, a kindred spirit on a similar path of darkness and vengeance. In a distant part of the land, another Eldur roamed, her heart hardened by betrayal and loss. Her name was Seranna, and her journey mirrored Eldur's in many ways. She too had been forced to endure unimaginable pain and had emerged stronger, her soul burning with the desire for retribution. Seranna moved through the night like a wraith, her eyes always searching for the next target, her heart yearning for a purpose beyond the cycle of violence. She had yet to find someone who could truly understand her, someone who could see beyond the monster she had become and recognize the wounded soul within. One day, the paths of Eldur and Serana would cross. In a world filled with chaos and despair, their meeting would be a convergence of two powerful forces, both shaped by pain and loss. Together, they would navigate the treacherous landscape of their existence, their shared experiences, forming a bond that could transcend their individual suffering. Over time, as they fought side by side and learned to trust one another, Eldur and Serana would discover that even elders, beings forged in pain, could find peace and happiness. Their journey would be fraught with challenges, but it would also be filled with moments of understanding and solace, a new beginning. And so, as Eldur continued on his path of vengeance, a new chapter awaited him, one that promised the possibility of redemption and companionship. The emptiness within him would one day be filled by another who knew the depths of his pain, and together they would find a way to heal. Coming soon, Eldur and Serana, the final part in this 3-part saga. In this concluding chapter, witness the meeting of two souls bound by suffering and destiny. Follow their journey as they seek vengeance and ultimately find the peace and happiness that had long eluded them. Shadows of loneliness. Serana moved through the modern streets of New Orleans like a wraith, her presence barely noticed by the bustling crowds. The city had changed since the days of the Crimson Dawn, and her time trapped in the Shadow Realm felt like a distant nightmare. Yet, despite the passage of centuries, the gnawing emptiness inside her remained. She stalked her prey through the dark alleys, the choice of victim meaningless. A young woman walking alone, a homeless man huddled against the cold, an unsuspecting tourist. None of it mattered. Serana's moral code had long since eroded, leaving her a predator driven by an insatiable hunger. As the moon cast eerie shadows on the cobblestone streets, Serana struck. She emerged from the darkness with the swiftness of a spectre, her fangs sinking into the soft flesh of her victim's neck. The warm rush of blood filled her senses, momentarily quenching the void within. The prey's life ebbed away, their struggles fading into silence. Finished, Serana let the lifeless body drop to the ground and melted back into the shadows. The city continued its restless hum, oblivious to the horror that had just transpired. She returned to her home, an isolated estate hidden away from prying eyes. It had been her sanctuary for years, a place where she could disappear from the world. Inside, the silence was suffocating. Serana sat in the grand parlor, the weight of her loneliness pressing down on her. She had forgotten this feeling during her adventures with the Crimson Dawn and her encounters with Eldur. The memory of Eldur's name made the void within her shrink ever so slightly. Eldur, the one she felt a connection to after so many years. An Eldur like herself, born from suffering and driven by vengeance. Although an Eldur could not love in the human sense, Serana knew that a connection could ease the unrelenting pain. She thought of Eldur, the times they fought side by side, their shared quest for retribution, binding them in a way she hadn't experienced before. The battles, the moments of silent understanding, the brief reprieves from their eternal torment. These memories made her burden a little lighter. Serana rose from her chair and walked to the window, looking out at the city that had been her hunting ground for so long. The streets were bathed in the glow of streetlights, shadows dancing in the alleys. She felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in centuries, a desire for connection, a need to see Eldur again. As she stood there, contemplating the darkness of her existence and the glimmer of hope that Eldur's memory brought, Serana made a decision. She would find Eldur. Perhaps together they could find a way to ease their suffering, to find some semblance of peace in their cursed immortality. For now, the night was her ally, and the hunt would continue. But somewhere in the shadows, the promise of reunion gave her a reason to endure. The ritual of shadows. Serana stood alone in the dimly lit parlor of her estate, her mind racing with a singular thought. Eldur. She spoke into the shadows, an ancient method of communication, her voice resonating with a mix of desperation and determination. Eldur, are you there? The silence that followed was deafening. She tried again and again, each time her hope diminishing with the lack of response. Frustration and fear gnawed at her insides. Determined, Serana decided to take more drastic measures. She began preparing a ritual, an ancient and forgotten rite, known only to the oldest of their kind, drawing intricate symbols on the ground. With a mixture of blood and ash, she chanted the words of shadow, summoning the energy needed to locate Eldur's essence. As she completed the ritual, she waited, her heart, what remained of it, heavy with anticipation. Nothing. The emptiness that followed struck her with a profound sense of loss. No essence could mean only one thing. Eldur was no more. The realization hit her harder than anything she had ever experienced. Eldur, the one kindred spirit who had eased her suffering, was gone. The pain she felt was overwhelming, eclipsing even the darkest moments of her past. She had not understood how much he had meant to her until this moment. In a blind rage, she began destroying everything around her. Furniture splintered under her strength, priceless artifacts shattered into pieces. Her anger was boundless, directed at herself for not recognizing Eldur's importance sooner and for not being there when he needed her most. Then, in the midst of her fury, she felt it. A single tear ran down her face. She wiped it away, staring at the moisture on her fingertips in disbelief. "Impossible," she whispered. "Elders cannot cry. We cannot love or pity. We know only pain. How is this possible?" Falling to her knees within the ritual circle, she let the energy of her rage and sorrow flow through her, It was then she sensed something. A faint, barely discernible essence. Eldur. Alive, but just barely. With renewed focus, Serana channeled every ounce of her energy into the ritual, seeking to pinpoint Eldur's location. The vision came to her slowly, a blurry image that gradually sharpened into clarity. There he was, lying on the ground in a small field in what was now Germany. "I must go to him," she whispered, her voice filled with a mix of determination and urgency. "I must save him, and myself." Gathering her strength, Serana prepared to travel. She would cross continents, defy time, and face any obstacle to reach Eldur. For in saving him, she knew she might also save herself from the abyss of loneliness and despair that threatened to consume her. With the ritual's power still coursing through her, Serana stepped into the shadows, her destination clear. Germany awaited, and with it, the possibility of redemption and reunion with the one being who had come to mean everything to her. The reawakening Eldur lay on the ground where his small shack had once stood. This place, now a forgotten ruin, had been his home for many years, a silent witness to his joy and sorrow. Buried here centuries ago were his wife and unborn child, a grave marked only by his eternal grief. He had not fed for weeks, hoping that starvation would finally end his torment. The all-encompassing urge to feed was a vampire's primal drive, one that could not be denied, except by someone who had lost everything. Eldur's failure felt complete. He had been defeated again and again throughout the Crimson Dawn saga and within the Shadow Realm. Cast aside like an insignificant object, his life felt as worthless as it had on the auction block when he was a slave. He lay on the cold earth, waiting for his end. His body was withered, his powers diminished. Death was approaching, and he welcomed it. "I have killed thousands," he whispered to the ground. "Each of them a retribution for my pain. But where has it brought me? Right back to the beginning. There is no retribution, no peace. No one who can stop the pain. No one but death. Then send death, so I may embrace him and end my suffering." His vision was fading, and his body felt weaker with each passing moment. As he lay there, he saw a figure in black standing over him. He laughed weakly. "Come, take me then. I welcome release from this pain." "Eldur," a weak, caring voice said. Eldur's emptiness shrank slightly as he instantly recognized the voice of Serana. He squinted, trying to focus on her face. She was a beacon in his darkness. "Eldur, you must feed, or you will die. If you die, I will be alone again. I need you," Serana pleaded. A weak smile struggled onto Eldur's face. "Serana, you are the only one to do this for so long, the only one who could bring my smile back. But I cannot. I have lost at every turn. I failed in every endeavor. I have never won or succeeded. I am a failure, cursed to lose and revel in pain forever." "No," Serana shouted, her voice filled with a fierce determination. "You have won. You have won me. I know love is impossible for us, but at every encounter, every moment together, you have been the one who has eased my pain, my suffering. You are the answer to the void I feel within me. Together, we can help each other. We can seek retribution as a whole, as one." Eldur looked into Serana's eyes, seeing the desperation and sincerity within them. Her words pierced through his despair. She knelt beside him, cradling his head in her hands. The warmth of her touch, the intensity of her gaze ignited a spark of hope in him. "Feed, Eldur," Serana urged. "Feed and live. We can face this together. We can find a way to ease each other's pain." With great effort, Eldur raised his hand to touch Serana's face. "You are the only light in my darkness," he whispered. "For you, I will try." Seranna helped him sit up, exposing her wrist to his fangs. Eldur hesitated for a moment, then sank his teeth into her flesh, drawing the life-giving blood into his veins. As he fed, strength and vitality began to return to his body. The connection between them deepened, their shared pain and determination intertwining. When he finally released her wrist, Eldur felt a renewed sense of purpose. He looked into Serana's eyes, seeing a reflection of his own resolve. "We will face this together," he said, his voice stronger now. "We will seek retribution and find a way to ease our suffering." Serana smiled, a rare and genuine smile. "Yes, Eldur. Together, we will find our path." As the night embraced them, they stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their bond, forged in pain and strengthened by their shared resolve, would guide them through the darkness. The night was thick with the tension as Eldur and Serana moved through the shadows, their eyes fixed on the sprawling estate before them. This was the stronghold of a powerful drug lord, a fortress guarded by over 100 armed men. To most, it would be an impenetrable fortress, but to Eldur and Serana, it was a playground of vengeance. They slipped past the outer defenses with ease, their supernatural speed and stealth rendering them invisible to the guards. As they approached the inner courtyard, they split up, each taking a different route to unleash their wave of death. Eldur struck first, descending upon a group of guards with the fury of a storm. His movements were a blur, his strength unstoppable. He broke necks, tore out throats, and left a trail of blood in his wake. Each kill brought a dark satisfaction, and he looked up at Serana with a savage smile. Serana mirrored his actions, her attacks swift and lethal. She moved through the guards like a shadow, her fangs sinking into flesh, her claws ripping through armor and bone. Her eyes met Eldur's across the battlefield, and they shared a moment of pure, unadulterated pleasure in the carnage they wrought. The guards had no chance. They fell one by one, their screams echoing through the night. The air was thick with the scent of blood and fear, and Eldur and Serana thrived in it. Each death was a release. Each moment of suffering they caused eased their own burdens. As the last guard fell, Serana and Eldur stood amidst the carnage, their chests heaving with the exhilaration of the hunt. Blood dripped from their hands and mouths, and they relished the destruction they had caused. The estate, once a bastion of power and control, was now a graveyard. Serana looked at Eldur, her eyes gleaming. "We've done it again," she said, her voice filled with dark satisfaction. Eldur nodded, wiping blood from his lips. "Yes, and it feels liberating." Unknown to them, a familiar face watched from the shadows. Dr. Thorne, his eyes narrowed, observed their actions with a mix of curiosity and disdain. He spoke softly to himself, his voice barely a whisper. "I did not create you to be released from pain, from suffering," he muttered. "I will send someone to ensure you both feel the pain and suffering you were meant to embody." As Eldur and Serana reveled in their victory, Dr. Thorne disappeared into the night, his mind already plotting his next move. The tranquility they found in their shared vengeance would soon be shattered, and their journey would take an even darker turn. For now, however, Eldur and Serana were united in their purpose, their connection stronger than ever. Together, they would face whatever came next, determined to find solace in each other's company and in the retribution they delivered to a world that had wronged them. Eldur and Serana sat in a hidden location, safe from the day's light and the prying eyes of their enemies. The secluded spot provided them with a rare moment of peace. Eldur broke the silence first, his voice filled with gratitude and resolve. Serana, you have saved me. My life was an eternal cycle of pain and suffering. I lost everything until I met you. The day you joined me at Fort Hope was the day my void began to fill. The eternal loneliness, the pain was eased. Today, even elders can know real peace, even if it means the suffering of others. Serana smiled softly, her eyes reflecting a shared understanding. Yes, Elder, I always thought I was alone. She paused, gathering her thoughts. My parents died when I was young, and I was left to survive on the streets. Eventually, I was taken in by an orphanage, but it was a harsh place. I married young, at 16, but my husband was abusive and left me when I was pregnant. My son died of fever when he was but 2 years old, and with him, any hope I had. She continued, her voice steady. I lived a life of solitude and pain, just like you. But it was not until I realized how similar and connected we were that I saw a chance for peace and happiness once more. At that moment, they heard the sound of clapping hands. Turning, they saw Dr. Thorne emerging from the shadows, his face a mask of both pride and disdain. My children, Dr. Thorne began. I watched with pride as you both enacted your retribution upon others. How you became weapons of the pain you suffered. How your pain drove you to be the best and worst among us. But this... He spat the words with contempt. You are not meant to be happy. You are meant for pain and suffering. To reap your pain unto others, as is every elder. And elder, I will not forget your betrayal to my father. Now you two must separate and go about your ways. This simply cannot be... Eldur stood, his eyes blazing with defiance. No, he said firmly. I will not abandon Serana, just as she did not abandon me. Dr. Thorne's eyes narrowed. Have you both forgotten who it was that truly saved you? Serana rose to stand beside Eldur. Saved us. If not for you, we would be dead and at peace. Instead, you doomed us to an eternity of suffering. So we broke the rules. We refused to suffer any longer. Dr. Thorne's expression turned sinister. Oh, this will be fun. A challenge then, he declared. I will send but one to serve me. When he wins, if either of you survive, then I will allow this. But I give you fair warning. You will not survive. Eldur stepped forward, his voice a growl of determination. Send them. Send them all. Dr. Thorne laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Very well. Prepare yourselves. With that, Dr. Thorne disappeared into the shadows, leaving Eldur and Serana alone once more. They stood together, their resolve unbroken. We will face whatever comes, Eldur said, his voice resolute. Together. Serana nodded, her eyes meeting his. Together. As the night deepened, they prepared for the inevitable battle. Their bond had been forged in pain and strengthened by their shared defiance. No matter what Dr. Thorne sent their way, they would stand as one, determined to carve out their own path and find the peace they both so desperately sought. Laughter in the darkness. Serana and Eldur sat alone in their hidden sanctuary, the quiet of the night enveloping them. Serana broke the silence, her voice tinged with confusion and curiosity. Why has he appeared now after all this time? If he has some connection with us, why have we not seen him in our battles with the undead, the Lycan, winter, and the gods. Eldur sighed, his gaze distant. I know not, my dear, but he mentioned I betrayed his father. I have betrayed many in my time. Does he mean Eldritch, the sage Nocturna? I have had the pleasure of enriching all of their lives. Serana smiled at his jest, but the question still lingered. There is a reason we have not seen him before. I just cannot figure this out yet. Why would he not show himself during the battles of Crimson Dawn? Eldur nodded thoughtfully. We will have to tread carefully until we understand him better. Do you think we will need help to face whatever it is he sends against us? Serana laughed, a sound that echoed through the darkness. Who would help us, Eldur? I think we have caused more betrayal between us than the entire race of elders. At that moment, something unexpected happened. Both Eldur and Serana burst into laughter, a deep, genuine laughter that they hadn't experienced in centuries. Serana could barely speak through her laughter.
Sent them all.
She managed to say. Eldur joined in, his laughter booming as he fell to the floor, clutching his sides. The walls of their sanctuary seemed to reverberate with their mirth. For a brief moment, the pain and suffering that had defined their existence were forgotten. In that fleeting instance, they found solace in each other's presence, something they had not felt in a long time. As their laughter subsided, they lay on the floor, still chuckling softly. Eldur looked over at Serana, his eyes filled with a rare warmth. Only with you could I find such a moment of peace. Serana nodded, her smile lingering. Our bond is something even Dr. Thorne cannot break. Together, we will face whatever comes our way. They sat up, the seriousness of their situation slowly returning, but tempered by the connection they had just reaffirmed. The question of Dr. Thorne's sudden appearance still loomed over them, but for now, they were ready to face it together. We will uncover his motives, Eldur said resolutely, and we will stand strong against whatever he sends. Serana agreed, her resolve matching his. We are stronger together. No matter what comes, we will face it as one. With that, they prepared themselves for the challenges ahead, their spirits bolstered by the rare moment of shared joy. The darkness outside their sanctuary was vast and threatening, but within, they had found a light that could guide them through even the most daunting trials. Dr. Thorne traversed an old mountain pass, his shadow form making light work of the dangerous mountain sides and edges. He arrived at his destination, a cave unreachable by any but the elders. As he entered, a voice greeted him from the darkness. You have returned. Yes, my child, Dr. Thorne replied, and I have need of your special talent. From the shadows, a figure emerged, its face pale with deep sunken eyes and skin flaking like aged parchment. The figure's eyes gleamed with a sinister curiosity. What is it this time? A lichen out of control, like last time? No, Dr. Thorne said, his voice heavy with purpose. 2 elders who have defied me and my father. The figure's eyes burned with renewed hatred.
Then they shall know the punishment of the Master, the creator of Azrael, the most powerful of all elders.
Dr. Thorne nodded, his expression stern. Be swift in thy punishment. You must kill at least one, so the other may suffer eternally. The Master, the elder who had created the most potent elders, stepped fully from the shadows. His body was old and weathered, yet he radiated an aura of pure hatred and malice. His presence was a testament to the centuries of suffering and vengeance he had wrought upon the world. Rest assured, Dr. Thorne, the Master said, his voice a chilling whisper. Their defiance shall be met with a retribution they cannot fathom. With a final nod, Dr. Thorne watched as the Master prepared himself. His form, though aged, moved with a deadly grace. The shadows seemed to cling to him, amplifying his dark presence. The Master was ready to enact the retribution on Eldur and Serana. "Remember," Dr. Thorne said, his voice echoing in the cavern, "one must die, so the other may suffer." The Master gave a twisted smile. "They shall beg for the release of death, but only one will receive it. The other's torment will be a testament to their folly." As the Master began his journey to find Eldur and Serana, Dr. Thorne lingered for a moment, his mind already plotting the next steps. He had set in motion a chain of events that would either break the rebellious elders or forge them into something even more formidable. Either outcome would serve his purpose. The Master, with his aura of ancient malevolence, moved with purpose and speed, traversing the treacherous mountain paths as if they were nothing. His hatred fueled him, driving him toward his targets with an unwavering determination. The punishment he would deliver would be swift and merciless, a true reflection of the Master's dark heart. As he descended from the mountains, the Master's thoughts were singular. Eldur and Serana would pay for their defiance. Their suffering would be legendary, a new chapter in the endless saga of vengeance and retribution among the elders. The Knight was his ally, and soon the rebellious elders would feel the full weight of his wrath. The battle with the Master. Eldur and Serana felt the overwhelming presence of something powerful, an essence of an elder radiating pure hatred and evil. They stepped outside their hidden location, standing there in the darkness, facing the one known only as the Master. The Master spoke first, his voice dripping with contempt. "Are you ready to die for your defiance?" The power radiating from the Master was overwhelming, even for Eldur and Serana. Serana spoke first, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "We are no strangers to death. If you are to be the one to deliver its final blow, then so be it. We shall die together." The Master sneered. "No. I will kill only one. The other I will leave for an eternity of torment." Eldur, stepping through the shadow, launched a ferocious attack, appearing behind the Master. The Master simply moved and swatted Eldur like an insect. "You are no match for me. I was given power by Nocturna himself." Serana lunged at the Master, only to be swatted aside like a fly. Both Eldur and Serana lay on the floor, bruised and battered. The Master laughed an evil laugh. "This is your doom." But instead of fear, Serana began to laugh. "Send them all," she said through her laughter. Eldur burst into laughter as well. The Master, confused and enraged, demanded, "What is this? You are about to meet your doom, and you laugh like children." "Oh, what the hell?" Eldur said, launching himself at the Master once more. This time, his attacks were faster, so fast that even the Master had trouble avoiding them. But with a huge swipe, the Master lashed at Eldur, sending him flying into an unmoving heap. Serana, angered by the fear of losing Eldur, leapt at the Master with renewed vigor. Her speed and agility forced the Master to use all his prowess to avoid her attacks. Yet, in a moment of vulnerability, she too was sent flying through the air by the Master. Both Eldur and Serana lay on the floor, motionless. The Master spoke with finality. "And now, the end." But then the laughter returned. Eldur rose to his feet, cackling, "Send them all!" He attacked the Master once again. Serana's voice echoed, Send them all! She joined the fray, and together they lashed out violently at the Master. A blow from Seranna connected, followed by Eldur's fist. The Master staggered back, his face a mask of shock. Enough! He screamed, unleashing a massive attack that knocked both Eldur and Serana down. Eldur rose, but Serana did not. He tried to lift her, but she remained unresponsive. The Master laughed. Looks like you have the raw deal, Eldur. She is dead. Eldur's face twisted into a fury. His entire life of pain and suffering coursed through him. No Eldur had felt pain such as this, and pain was what fueled their powers. The Master could feel it, stepping back curiously, unsure of himself for the first time. All of Eldur's life, his pain was overwhelming, but this, the loss of Serana, was a pain unmatched by even the most potent Eldur. In a blind fury, he unleashed this very pain, charging at the Master. Each blow connected, with a force driven by his infinite suffering. The Master took hit after hit, blow after blow until he lay defeated. But Eldur did not stop. His pain was an infinite power source of suffering, and he continued to batter the defeated Master again and again. He was lost in his rage until he heard it. Eldur. It was Serana. I am okay. In that moment, Eldur changed. His pain and suffering were filled by the only one who was able to fill his loss, his void. He ran and grabbed Serana in his arms, holding her tightly. Serana looked up at him, her eyes filled with both pain and relief. We did it, Eldur. Together. Eldur nodded, his face softening. Yes, together. Always. They stood there, the remnants of their battle surrounding them, but for the first time they felt a true connection, a true bond that even the darkest forces could not break. Together they were unstoppable, and together they would face whatever came next. A new resolve. Well, well, a voice echoed through the darkness. You have won, Dr. Thorne said, stepping from the shadows. I know not how you won, but you did. And unlike you, Eldur, I keep my word. I shall no longer challenge this decision you two have made, but my father is most displeased with you. He will be more so now that you have destroyed the Master. This was a creation of his making. I can only warn you that he will send more than one to finally finish you. Serana, still feeling the pain, but filled with defiance, laughed. Send them all! Eldur, despite his battered state, burst into laughter as well. The sound echoed through the night, a symbol of their unbroken spirit. Dr. Thorne, puzzled, shook his head. I have no idea what is happening, but I want you to know, a piece of me is proud of you two, my children, for you have done something no other has done. You have found peace, peace within each other. I knew you two were special. Eldur, bloodied but determined, looked up. Who are you? Dr. Thorne smiled, a rare, almost fatherly smile. I am your father, your creator. With that, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving a battered but resolute Eldur and Serana behind. As the night enveloped them, Serana looked at Eldur, her eyes filled with determination. We will stand together, always, she said, her voice unwavering. Eldur nodded, his strength renewed by her presence. No matter what comes, we face it side by side. Serana took his hand, their bond stronger than ever. We have faced the worst, and we have survived. We are stronger together, Eldur. Let them come. We will make them regret underestimating us. Eldur squeezed her hand, a fierce light in his eyes. Yes, together, we are unstoppable. We will face whatever challenges come our way, and we will prevail. They stood there, the remnants of their battles scattered around them, but they were not broken. They had found something more powerful than vengeance, each other. Their connection was a beacon in the darkness, guiding them forward. As dawn approached, they knew their fight was far from over. Dr. Thorne's warning echoed in their minds, but it only strengthened their resolve. They would face whatever came their way, and they would do it together. No force, no elder, no creature from the shadows could break their bond. Hand in hand, they walked away from the battlefield, ready for whatever the future held. They were Eldur and Serana, bound by pain, and prepared to face the world side by side. Their journey was just beginning, and together they would forge a new path, one that defied the darkness and embraced the light within them.
Greetings! It's Professor Shadow here, and I'd like to thank you personally for enjoying and watching the 3-part saga of Eldur and Serana. I'd heartedly like to thank you all for all of your shares, for your likes, for your comments. I created the Eldur and Serana saga for one reason, to show that although we did it through elders or vampires, I wanted to show that no matter how much pain we go through our lives, no matter that breakup or that business failure or that bill that can't be paid or that person that stabs you in the back or things just aren't going your way, each and every one of them is a pain, and pain is something that only makes us stronger. Just like the elders, the pain we feel through life grows us into the person we are today. If we look back to see all of the trouble and the trauma we've gone through our lives, each and every one of those pains have grown us into the person we are today. So no matter what's happening in your world today, always remember, whatever pain you're going through right now is only making you stronger. But beware, maybe that pain that you overcome, that you fight for, will have someone knocking on your door by the name of Dr. Thorne. If you really enjoyed the saga of Eldur and Serana, then don't forget to subscribe and like the channel, share and comment on the videos, as it really does help me create more and more of this material just for you. Professor Shadow here. I'm going to be signing off, and see you real soon.